my son-in-law Hunter, got himself wrapped around some woman's finger. A woman who claimed to be rich, and suddenly he was hell-bent on divorcing my daughter, Caroline. The cherry on top? His mother, Marlene, actually had the nerve to come to me, saying I shouldn't stand in the way of their family's happiness. Oh, the irony. Because the moment those divorce papers were finally signed, that so-called rich woman turned to me, smiled politely and said, "Good afternoon, boss." I had arrived in my Rolls-Royce. The door swung open, and when Hunter and Marlene saw me step out, their faces turned the color of sour milk. I looked them both straight in the eye and said calmly, "Truth is, your little nest egg? I wouldn't even bother picking it up off the ground. Caroline is my only child. My daughter, my girl. I raised her like she was made of glass and stars. But she's stubborn. She insisted on marrying Hunter, that manipulative little snake. I tried to warn her, pleaded with her even, but she kept saying it was true love. So I gave in. On one condition: Hunter must never know we have money." Caroline didn't understand back then. Not until the day she called me, sobbing so hard her words came out broken. "Mom," she choked out, "could you please help me?" I was sitting in this old cafe sipping a latte. Listening to her cry like that, I won't lie, I knew this day would come. I just didn't realize how cruel Hunter and his mother would turn out to be. She told me how, after the wedding, Hunter talked her into quitting her six-figure job as a marketing consultant. Said he wanted her to relax a little. Then he started giving her just $1,500 a month to live on, while sticking her with the utility bills. She cooked. She cleaned. He did the laundry. Breakfast had to be on the table by 6 a.m., and dinner had to be worthy of a restaurant. Every single day. And Marlene? She treated my daughter like hired help. Criticized everything she cooked. And get this, she actually told Caroline to her face, "You're just the maid in this house." The maid. Without the paycheck. I pay my housekeeper $5,000 a month. What gives her the right to make my daughter work for free? The more I listened, the angrier I got. I slammed my coffee cup down so hard it cracked against the table. "Hunter," I said through gritted teeth. "That boy and his vulture of a mother? They're about to find out what it means to mess with the wrong family. I'll make damn sure they can't show their faces in this town again." When I saw Caroline later that day, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She rolled up her sleeves and showed me the bruises along her arms, layered, purple, ugly. I almost lost my balance. I asked her, "Did Hunter see what was happening to you? Did he say anything at all?" She bit her lip and nodded, whispering like she was afraid the walls might hear. "He said he can't control his mom. He just told me to put up with it." My blood pressure spiked so fast I saw stars. I grabbed her hands and said, "That's not putting up with it, sweetheart. That's him standing there while you get beaten down, while they scream at you. He's signed off on making you their house slave." Caroline started crying again, and through her tears she asked, "Then what am I supposed to do?" My heart broke, but I was furious too. Looking at how pale and worn she was, I didn't say anything. I just told her to come with me. We were going to get her a full spa treatment. At the very least, she needed a moment to breathe. But we had barely stepped into the salon when Marlene stormed in like a rabid animal. She grabbed Caroline by the arm and started shouting, "What the hell are you doing in a place like this? Are the clothes washed yet? Is dinner even started?" I jumped between them and gave Marlene a long, hard stare. "You know what, Marlene?" I said, smiling coldly. "Here's $100. Why don't you come over to my house and make us dinner for once?" Caroline immediately ducked behind me, trembling so hard she couldn't speak. And that's when Marlene really lost it. She pointed a shaking finger at us and screamed like she was possessed. "Oh, I see what this is. You two have been blowing my son's money on facials and lattes. Caroline, you ungrateful little leech. You dare spend his money behind our backs? Oh no, you're not getting away with this today." She was still screaming when she raised her hand, ready to strike Caroline across the back. But I moved fast. I caught her wrist midair and shoved her away with the full weight of a mother's fury. Marlene went down hard. Flat on her back, limbs flailing, sprawled across the salon's marble floor like a flipped cockroach. But instead of getting up, she stayed there, milking the moment for all it was worth. She started wailing loud enough for the whole salon to hear. "Everyone look. Look what these two gold diggers are doing with my son's money. Thousands of dollars just to get facials." It was a busy day at the salon. Her voice carried. Heads turned. People began gathering. I walked over, calm as ice, with a smirk curling on my lips. You really think your son's paycheck could cover even half a treatment in this place? I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Thousands? Do you even know where you are right now? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Look at her, one woman whispered. That fake gold necklace and penny-pinching attitude, what a joke. It didn't take long for security to show up. They didn't ask questions. 2 guards lifted Marlene right off the floor and dragged her toward the exit. She didn't go quietly. My son is a deputy manager at Moore Holdings, she shrieked. He'll be here tomorrow to teach you people a lesson. The front desk manager didn't even blink. Ma'am, she said coolly, you just attempted to assault one of our VIP clients. You've been permanently blacklisted from all our locations. Please don't return. As they hauled her off, she turned back and spat at me. You think you've won, Haley? I'm going to make sure Hunter divorces your daughter. She'll be tossed out like trash, unwanted and alone. I didn't flinch. Unwanted. I thought. The only one being kicked to the curb is her precious son, by life itself. After Marlene's disgraceful exit, Caroline clung to my hand. Her voice trembled. Mom, I'm scared. What if going back makes it worse? What if she starts hurting me again? I let out a long breath and pulled her down beside me. From now on, don't lift a finger in that house. She yells, you record. She touches you, you film it. We're not staying silent. We're building evidence. Marlene was the type who bullied the weak and bowed to the strong. I'd met her kind 1,000 times over. Sure enough, a few days later, Caroline called again, this time with a spark of confidence in her voice. Mom, you were right. She hasn't laid a finger on me since. But Marlene hadn't given up. Instead, she switched tactics, whispering poison into Hunter's ear every chance she got, urging him to leave Caroline. At first, Hunter pretended to play the peacemaker. But after a few days of Marlene's non-stop nagging, he started vanishing for entire nights, not even bothering to lie about where he'd been. Caroline started to panic. One night she called me, her voice barely audible. Mom, if he's cheating on me, what do I do? I smiled coldly to myself. Good. Let him cheat. I needed her to see him for who he really was. Not someone who loved her, but a man who chased money, opportunities, and younger women with tighter skin and less baggage. And sure enough, not even a week passed before my phone rang again. This time she was sobbing so hard it was hard to make out the words. Mum, his collar, lipstick smudges, and that god-awful cheap perfume, I almost threw up. Her crying was guttural, raw. I wanted to storm over there and rip Hunter apart with my own hands. But I had to wait. She needed to see it, feel it, for herself. I told her to meet me at a coffee shop. She arrived with puffy, swollen eyes and trembling hands. I slid a stack of photographs across the table. Hunter and the woman, arm in arm, entering fancy restaurants, slipping into luxury hotel suites. This is Hunter, I said. Take a good look. She stared at the pictures for a long time, saying nothing. And then, quietly, she whispered something that made me want to scream. I still love him, she said. I think, maybe he just made a mistake. I think he might change. God help me. I wanted to throw my coffee straight in her face. Instead, I drew a long breath, forced myself to stay calm and said flatly, Caroline, you need to wake up. But she couldn't hear me. Not yet. I knew then she had to hit rock bottom. He had to break. And just as I was trying to figure out how to make that happen, Marlene, bless her deranged little heart, beat me to it. Out of nowhere, Caroline texted me, Mom, you won't believe this. Marlene cooked dinner tonight. A full spread. She apologized. Said she's been too harsh. Said she wants to start over. When I saw Caroline's last message, the screen lingered on her final line. Mom, Marlene really seems sincere this time. I'm gonna eat first. My heart skipped a beat. Something didn't sit right. I called her, once, twice, over and over. She didn't answer. My hands began to shake and a pit formed in my stomach. The thought hit me like a truck. Something's wrong. I made calls. I drove around. I pulled every string I had, and finally I found her. A rundown motel on the outskirts of town. That's where they'd lured her. She was locked inside a dingy room, curled up in a corner, pale as a sheet, shaking like a leaf. And right outside that door, a filthy, wild-eyed man who looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. and he was just about to. I shoved a wad of cash into his hand and said in a low voice, "Take the money. Now get the hell out." He left. When I opened the door and Caroline saw me, she collapsed. Her body gave out like a rag doll. She fell into my arms and wailed like a child, raw and broken. My heart felt like it had been put through a paper shredder. But she was safe. They hadn't touched her. Thank God. Then out of nowhere the door burst open. Hunter charged in, phone in hand, ready to play the dramatic husband catching his cheating wife in the act. "You cheating bitch, wait. Haley, what the hell are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the room. His head snapped to the side and his phone clattered to the floor. From the next room over we heard a woman scream. "Marlene." Hunter spun and ran toward the sound through the door open, and there he saw it. The same filthy man they'd hired to terrorize Caroline was now lunging at Marlene. Hunter freaked out. He shoved the man off her and slammed the door shut. His face had gone ghost white. That's when it hit him. Their little scheme hadn't just backfired. It had boomeranged with a vengeance. A few days later, downtown Charleston, Hunter strutted into a cafe like he was walking a red carpet, arm in arm with his new girlfriend, Janine Thomas, the woman he thought was some loaded heiress. Marlene followed close behind, wrapped in a cheap faux fur coat that looked like it came off a clearance rack at Walmart. Janine, for her part, gave me a polite little nod. I'll give her credit, she was committed to the role. Hunter plopped down at the table, dragging Janine's hand with him, a smug grin plastered across his face. "This is Janine," he announced. "She's a real woman, successful, sweet, and knows how to treat a man. Not like you, Caroline. All you ever did was spend my money." Caroline clenched her jaw, pulled a manila envelope from her purse and slammed it down on the table. "Sign it, asshole." Hunter opened it and blanched. "You want me to walk away with nothing? What the hell is this? Your family set me up, didn't you? You're all just after my money." I took a slow sip of coffee. Said nothing. Hunter looked around, desperate, trying to read the room. Then he actually grabbed Caroline's hand and said, "Come on, baby. You still love me, right? How about this? Why not the three of us live together? Janine's my wife, you're my mistress. I'll take care of both of you." Marlene lit up, nodding frantically. "Yes, yes. One big happy family. Caroline, you can still live with us and help around the house like before. It's perfect." Caroline's face darkened. She stood tall, her voice low and sharp. "You two are disgusting. This whole marriage thing. It was never about love. You just wanted a free maid." That was my cue. I slapped Hunter again. Marlene lunged across the table like she was going to claw my face off, but I shoved her back into her seat with one hand. She sat there seething, her whole body trembling in rage. And I just stared at the two of them, so smug, so shameless. I felt nauseous. But Caroline, she didn't flinch this time. No crying. No second-guessing. No looking back. She was clear-eyed. Steady. Done. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, my daughter's finally grown up. Hunter stood there, his hand pressed to his cheek, stunned for a solid few seconds before the rage caught up to him. He grabbed the pen off the table and scrawled his signature across the divorce papers with a furious flick of the wrist. "Fine. I'll sign," he barked. "I'm about to be rich anyway. Mansion's a Rolls-Royce just around the corner. See that car outside? That's my girlfriend's. You two can spend the rest of your lives begging for scraps, but you'll never ride in something like that." Caroline followed his gaze toward the window, and then froze. "That car, wasn't it ours?" Hunter saw her expression and puffed up like a rooster. "What's wrong? Can't even recognize a luxury vehicle anymore? That's a..." Beep. Beep. The Rolls-Royce outside chirped twice. Hunter whipped around just in time to see me standing at the tall cafe window, coolly twirling the car keys in my hand. And I smiled. Not a loud smile. Not a cruel smile. Just a quiet, knowing curve of the lips. He stiffened. His hand shot out and gripped Janine's sleeve, his voice trembling now. "Wait, isn't that your car? Why does she have the keys?" Janine stood slowly. She turned to face me, then bowed slightly, graceful, composed, and deeply respectful. "Ma'am," she said. "Boss." The entire cafe fell silent. Everyone froze, except me and Janine. Hunter's mouth hung open. He shook his head, murmuring like he was in a trance. No, no, this can't be real. This is some kind of trick. I gave Janine a nod. She stood up straight, voice crisp and clear. That's right. I'm not a rich heiress. I'm just an employee at Wood Holdings. The mansion, the car, the designer clothes you wore? All property of my employer, which means hers. Hunter's face drained of color. He collapsed into the couch like someone had pulled the bones out of his body. His hands clutched his head, veins bulging across his forehead. Marlene stood frozen for a beat, then snapped. She lunged at Janine, hand raised, wild-eyed. But security moved fast. 2 guards stepped in, pinning her back before she could lay a finger on anyone. She writhed, shouting like a madwoman. You bitch. You seduced my son. You conned him. I didn't even look up. I was gently brushing a fleck of lint from my coat. Then I spoke, voice cool as marble. First, he signed that divorce agreement willingly. Nobody forced him. Second, I couldn't care less about whatever pocket change you people call money. And third, marrying your son would be the real tragedy. I flicked my wrist. Security took the cue and began escorting them out. Hunter was still muttering, "This isn't happening," as they dragged him toward the door. Marlene cursed up a storm about getting her lawyer. I took Caroline's hand and we walked out together, stepping calmly into the car. Marlene watched us from the curb. Her face twisted, and then suddenly she collapsed right there on the pavement. Back in the Rolls-Royce, Janine was laughing in disbelief. "Ms. Wood," she said, "that was savage. I've never seen anything like it." But I turned to look at Caroline and my heart dropped. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying either. She was just vacant. Ice hollow, face pale. Like the soul had been sucked out of her. I reached out and gently took her hand. "Sweetheart, don't be afraid. I'll make this right. We'll go home, okay?" Janine nodded, chiming in gently, "Caroline, that man never deserved you. Not a single tear." But then, Caroline yanked her hand out of mine. The car fell dead silent. Janine inhaled sharply. I stared at Caroline, stunned. She was trembling, eyes bloodshot, her voice cracking but fierce. "This is what kind of mother you are," she snapped. "You arranged for someone to seduce my husband, just so you could blow up my marriage? You never wanted me to have a real family. You've been waiting for this. You've always wanted me stuck under your wing, an accessory to your life." I scrambled for words. "No, baby, it's not like that. Even if I hadn't stepped in, Hunter would have cheated. He never truly loved you." Caroline stared at me like I was made of glass, cold, sharp, and breakable. "You love controlling people with money, don't you?" she said. "I despise people like you. And I don't want to be your daughter anymore." It felt like someone took a dull knife and carved a piece straight out of my heart. She wasn't grateful I'd exposed that cheating bastard. She wanted to sever ties with me? In a blind rage, I froze her credit cards. But the anger didn't last long. Guilt crept in. I didn't want her out there with no money, no safety net. So I quietly asked her best friend to deposit a few thousand into her account. The reply came back fast. "She already moved out. I think she's living with Hunter again." I saw red. I grabbed Janine and drove straight there. We found them holed up in a cramped rental on the edge of town. One flickering bulb hung from the ceiling. A stained mattress sat on the floor. That was it. Hunter stood in the corner, arms crossed, eyes smug like he'd won something. He wasn't even trying to hide the defiance in his smile. And Caroline, she stood by his side like a soldier guarding a crumbling fortress. "What are you doing here?" she said flatly. I swallowed my fury, forced some softness into my voice. "I came to bring you home, sweetheart. Look around. You can't live like this." She looked me dead in the eye. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting back together with Hunter." It was like someone had slammed a cinder block into my chest. My whole back went cold. Janine gasped beside me. "Are you insane? Do you have any idea what your mother did to get you out of that marriage?" But Caroline turned on her like a spark hitting dry gasoline. "Slut," she screamed, shoving Janine backward. "You're the reason he cheated. You threw yourself at him." Hunter stepped in immediately, slipping his arm around Caroline. "I love her," he said calmly. "I never would have cheated if you two hadn't schemed against us. This was all a setup. You never gave us a chance." Then he turned his gaze to me, eyes full of false righteousness. And in that moment I knew he was manipulating her again. whispering lies into her ear like poison. I lunged forward, reaching for Caroline, but Hunter stepped in front of her like a guard dog. "Touch her and I'll press charges," he snapped. "She's pregnant. With our child. And you're not taking her anywhere." Just then the front door banged open. Marlene burst in, arms outstretched, voice shrill with glee. I knew my grandbaby was here. She rushed over to Caroline and guided her to the ratty sofa like she was royalty, rubbing her belly and beaming. "My sweet grandchild, my precious boy." I watched their little performance from the doorway, lips curled in contempt. I didn't believe for a second that Caroline was pregnant with Hunter's child. Hell, I wasn't even sure she was pregnant at all. Then Caroline pulled a plastic stick out of her pocket and threw it in my direction. "A positive pregnancy test." "I am pregnant," she said. "You're going to be a grandma." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Just then her face contorted. She clutched her stomach and let out a sharp cry, collapsing sideways onto the couch. I rushed forward, catching her before she hit the floor. Her forehead was soaked in cold sweat, her lips turning white. We got her to the hospital as fast as we could. In the hallway I stood outside the ER, fists clenched, heart pounding in my throat. A doctor came out holding a stack of medical reports. His face was grave. "Who's the patient's family?" he asked. I stepped forward, but Marlene and Hunter beat me to it. "I'm her mother-in-law," Marlene shouted. "I'm her husband," Hunter added. They crowded the doctor, voices overlapping. "How's the baby? Is the baby okay? Just save the baby." The doctor looked at them like he'd seen this show 100 times before, and was done with every last episode. Then he walked right past them and handed the file to me. His voice was calm but sharp as glass. "She's having an ectopic pregnancy. The fetus ruptured the fallopian tube. We need to operate immediately or she won't make it." Marlene lunged for the doctor's arm, crying hysterically. "Can you save the baby? I don't care what happens to her. Just save my grandson." The doctor yanked his sleeve free, disgust flashing across his face. "She's dying," he snapped. "And you're worried about the baby? You're unbelievable." I felt the ground tilt under me. My legs wobbled. But I gritted my teeth and steadied myself enough to take the pen. My hand shook violently as I signed the surgical consent form. "Please," I said, barely able to speak. "Save my daughter." As the doctor turned to leave, he paused. He glanced back at me and said quietly, "One more thing. During the exams we found multiple STDs. We suspect her partner is the source. I suggest he get tested as well." Then he turned his eyes, briefly but deliberately, toward Hunter, and walked into the operating room. The moment Hunter heard the word STD, he froze. Then, inch by inch, he backed away toward the elevator, like he thought he could quietly slip out of this nightmare. But I moved faster. I stormed across the hallway and grabbed his arm, yanking him back before he could escape. Without a word, I slapped him. Twice. The sharp cracks echoed down the corridor. "This is your idea of love?" I growled, my voice shaking with fury. "This is how you protect someone?" Marlene flew in like a banshee, throwing herself between us. "You can't just hit my son like that," she screeched. "Your daughter nearly died because of an ectopic pregnancy and now you're trying to blame Hunter? What kind of twisted game are you playing?" I turned and locked eyes with her, ice cold. "Do you even hear yourself? You're trying to pin a medical emergency on someone else? Do you know the first damn thing about anatomy? She's lying in there on the edge of death and you're still obsessing over some imaginary grandchild? You are a walking nightmare." Just then Janine showed up with hospital security in tow. I didn't hesitate. I pointed straight at Hunter. "Get him tested. Now." What I didn't expect was for Hunter to drop to his knees and cling to my leg like a crying toddler. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he sobbed. "I just thought, if Caroline got pregnant she wouldn't leave me. I didn't know it would hurt her." Then he started confessing right there in the hallway. "I cheated on her. More than once. I don't even remember their names. I didn't think they had anything. Yeah, I got some bumps but they didn't hurt or itch so I just ignored them." I stared at him in disbelief, my whole body trembling. He looked pathetic, snot running, hands shaking, eyes darting around like a trapped rat. He even grabbed a passing doctor by the coat, whispering, "Hey doc, this kind of thing, is it fatal?" I nearly collapsed from rage. This wouldn't end with a few tears and a test result. Not for them. Not after what they did. They were going to pay. Deeply. Fully. Publicly. The red light above the oar finally went dark. Caroline was wheeled out, pale and unconscious, with tubes in her arms and a tight bandage across her belly. The surgery had been a success, but they'd had to remove one of her fallopian tubes. It was too damaged to save. We sat in silence outside the recovery room when a nurse came out asking for payment. I heard her. But I didn't move. Marlene did though. She jabbed me in the side and barked, "What are you waiting for? Go pay the bill." I let out a dry laugh and turned to her slowly. "Excuse me? After what your son did to my daughter, you want me to foot the bill? You two should be paying me for emotional damages." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Your daughter came chasing after my son, remember? Now something bad happens and you expect us to clean it up? Dream on." Hunter must have sensed I was about to lose it. He quickly pulled her back and gave me a forced smile. "Let's not fight," he said. "How about we split it 50-50? Fair." I could have flipped the entire hospital bed over. But I kept it together for Caroline's sake. She was still unconscious. I didn't want to wake her. Except, she already was. Her voice came quiet but firm. "Split what?" She turned her head slowly, her eyes scanning past me, and landing on Marlene. Marlene didn't flinch. She folded her arms and sneered. "What else would we be talking about? Your treatment. You think we should just hand over thousands of dollars out of pity? You're lucky we're offering anything at all. For all we know, that baby wasn't even Hunter's. And if you're trying to use this whole mess to guilt trip us, don't bother. We're not suckers." Caroline's eyes filled with tears. Big, round, silent tears that rolled down her cheeks like glass marbles. Marlene kept going, voice shrill and cruel. "Oh, cut the act. You've been hanging on to Hunter like a leech. You made yourself the victim to get attention. Don't think we don't see through it." Even Hunter, growing tired of the scene, finally snapped. "Stop crying already. Jesus. You don't see me crying, do you? So you lost a fallopian tube. Big deal. You're not broken. Go find some guy who's desperate enough to marry you. Because I sure as hell don't want a damaged woman." That was it. Caroline reached for the glass of water on her bedside table, and before anyone could stop her, she hurled it at him. The sound of shattering glass cracked through the room. The cup hit Hunter square in the head. Blood gushed from the gash on his temple as he screamed in pain. Marlene shrieked and rushed to his side, grabbing napkins, tissues, anything to stop the bleeding. "You psycho," she cried, holding her son. "You're a rabid dog." Caroline raised a trembling hand, pointed straight at Hunter, and her voice came out like ice over fire, controlled but laced with pure hatred. "Get out," she said, each word crisp and deadly. "You begged me to come back. You sweet-talked me into getting pregnant. No. You infected me. You nearly killed me." Her chin lifted. Her eyes were steel. "I'm just going to treat this like I got bitten by a rabid dog," she said. "Now both of you, get the hell out of my room." Hunter and Marlene went pale. Neither dared to speak. They backed out like shadows, slipping away as fast as they could. The door clicked shut and Caroline collapsed into my arms. She sobbed like her soul was breaking apart. I held her and I cried too. The pain she carried, I felt it in my bones. Never in my worst nightmares did I imagine the daughter I raised with love and care would be so humiliated, so broken, so nearly destroyed by the man she trusted most. "Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice shaking like a loose window in a storm. "I was stupid. I trusted the wrong person." Then she looked up, her eyes swollen but fierce. "Mom, will you help me? Just this once, I want to fight back." I pulled her close and stroked her hair. "You don't even have to ask," I said. "Sweetheart, they'll pay for every damn thing. Every last thing." I sent Janine to dig up dirt on Hunter, and what she found was a buffet of crime. Falsified expense reports. Leaked internal memos. Fake project budgets. Embezzlement. It was a gold mine of corporate fraud. I invited Hunter to meet me, just the two of us, in a private lounge downtown. The moment he walked in, I dropped the stack of evidence on the table like a brick. He flipped through it page by page, and with each turn, his face went a deeper shade of gray. "You trying to blackmail me?" he muttered, his voice low, but his fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. I sipped my tea and gave him a slow smile. "Blackmail? This is just the truth. He lunged at me, but my security, already standing by, slammed him back into the leather sofa like he weighed nothing. What do you want? He snarled. I gave him a number. Calm, measured, deliberate. 200,000. In cash. 3 days. He laughed in my face. Why don't you just rob a bank while you're at it? He sneered. I nodded. I already am. And guess what? You are the vault. If I don't have that money in hand, I added, leaning forward, your boss gets a front row seat to this little scrapbook of crimes. Let's see how fast you're escorted out of the building. He stood, breathing hard. Rage boiled under his skin. Fine, he spat. You want to play dirty? You got it. I'll get you your money. I knew he didn't have it. Not that kind of money. So I made another call. Rick, I said, you've got a present coming. Handle it. 3 days later, Hunter stormed into the same lounge with a duffel bag full of cash, hands shaking with fury. He grabbed the envelope of evidence, pulled out a lighter, and set the papers on fire right there in the ashtray. He laughed, maniacal, unhinged. You think you've won? He said. That was your only copy. It's gone. You've got nothing now. I didn't even blink. Just smiled. Because what Hunter didn't know was this. The copies had been delivered to his boss's desk 48 hours ago. Sure enough, less than 3 hours later my phone rang. It was Hunter, screaming into the line. Haleywood, you lying, backstabbing witch. I was calm as ever. Honey, I said sweetly, this isn't about honesty. It's about strategy. And we're just getting started. That same day, Hunter was booted out of the company. Not only fired, blacklisted across the entire finance industry. His reputation was radioactive. He couldn't land a single job. The only gig he found was bussing tables at a seafood joint downtown. And that condo he was living in? That had been signed over to Caroline in the divorce. He and Marlene were now stuck in a dingy rental apartment with paper-thin walls and broken plumbing. No hot water. Drafty windows. Cockroaches. But wait, it got worse. The restaurant job didn't pay enough to cover his debts. The creditors came knocking and Marlene couldn't believe it. Her precious son, in debt? Then she noticed her faux fur coat was gone. And the gold chain she always wore? Missing. Turns out Hunter had pawned them off for cash. Now Marlene was going door to door, begging for loans, wringing her hands and blaming the world. Within weeks she looked 10 years older. Her once perfect salon hair hung limp and yellowed. The gloss and grandeur were gone. All that remained was bitterness, and a sinking realization that the world wasn't going to save her this time. Desperate for money, Hunter caught wind of something called underground street racing. Fast cash. High risk. No rules. He borrowed gear, scraped together entry fees, and dove headfirst into a string of low-tier races. Every time he came home he was covered in bruises and road rash, but at least it paid enough to keep the lights on. Then he set his sights on the big one. A citywide death race with a grand prize of $100,000. The best of the best were competing, seasoned daredevils, guys with modified cars and nothing to lose. And then there was Hunter. Rookie. A nobody. A man with delusions of a comeback. He bet everything on that race. Every cent. Every ounce of pride. But he never imagined that this would be the final chapter of his life. Near the final stretch, in a hairpin turn at over 120 miles per hour, his car lost control. There was no time to correct. He slammed into the guardrail. The impact threw him forward, head and spine crashing into steel and pavement. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was barely breathing. They rushed him to the ER. The trauma team moved fast, but even the most experienced neurosurgeon shook his head as the OR doors closed. It's unlikely he'll ever wake up, the doctor said flatly. What little prize money he'd won in earlier races. Gone. Poured into emergency surgery and life support. Still not enough. When Marlene heard her son was now in a vegetative state, she fainted right there in the hospital hallway. Meanwhile, across town, Caroline and I popped open a bottle of champagne. To justice, I said, raising my glass. Caroline gave me a weary but satisfied smile. They finally got what they deserved. But the fallout wasn't over. Hunter's unpaid debts came knocking. The creditors sent muscle to Marlene's door. She was too old to find work. No savings. No allies. Just raw desperation. She begged on every corner, knocked on doors, humiliated herself just to delay the inevitable. One day, she knelt on the floor of that grimy little apartment, sobbing, hands shaking, surrounded by angry men demanding payment. "My son's already like this," she pleaded. "Please, please show some mercy." And that's when I arrived. I happened to be passing by, but oh, what a coincidence. She looked up, stunned, as I approached in heels and a tailored coat. Hunter lay behind her, pale as death, wires everywhere. His face blank. I stopped. Slowly stepped forward. Then, without hesitation, I pressed the tip of my stiletto down on her rough, trembling hand. She winced in pain, looked up at me with wide, desperate eyes. I pulled a crisp dollar bill from my clutch and dropped it beside her. "Well, Marlene," I said sweetly, "you used to call me cheap. Let's see how far this gets you." She froze. Stared at the money like it had cursed her. I leaned down close, smiled, and whispered, "Wanna know a secret? The debts, the race, the accident. All of it, planned." Her eyes flared. She lunged like a rabid animal, teeth bared, trying to bite me. Security stepped in before she could touch me. I didn't flinch. I just chuckled and whispered in her ear, "Even a mad dog only bites when it's cornered. Isn't that what you taught me?" And I walked away. Never looked back. Later, I heard she couldn't repay her debts. One night, someone broke her legs. She ended up on the streets, begging for coins in the cold, her fake fur gone, hair matted and gray. As for Hunter, he never woke up. The hospital kicked him out when the bills stopped getting paid. He died alone in a freezing nursing home room no one claimed. They paid their price. Caroline made a full recovery. She walked away from that nightmare head high. He came to work with me and it turned out she had a gift. Within a month, she rose from the bottom to department lead. I was proud, so damn proud. 6 months later, I stepped down, officially retired, and passed the company to her. She doubled our revenue in under a year and launched a nonprofit program to support women who had suffered abuse, just like she once did. At her company graduation banquet, I teased her. "So, tell me, any thoughts about getting married again?" She laughed. "Mom, no thanks. I've seen enough of what men can offer. I'm married to my work now." I pulled her into a hug, smiling ear to ear. "Knew you were the best," I whispered. And then I grabbed my suitcase and began my own journey. A new adventure. World travel. Freedom. Joy. That was the end of Haley Wood's story. And the beginning of mine. My name is Caroline Wood. I'm Haley Wood's daughter. And for that I consider myself lucky. But the worst thing that ever happened to me was meeting Hunter Moore, along with his infamously vile mother Marlene, when I was just 20 years old. The first time I saw Hunter, it was outside the college library. He was crouched down, feeding a filthy stray dog. I remember him murmuring, "Easy, buddy. Don't choke." The sunset hit his face just right. For a moment he looked angelic. Disarming. Kind. I walked up and started a conversation. That was the moment I opened the gates of hell, with my own 2 hands. My mother had always warned me, never tell anyone who you are. Never mention our family name. So at school no one knew I was Haley Wood's daughter. I passed as just another girl from a modest home. Hunter found out my major, tracked my schedule, and went all in on courting me. He brought me breakfast every morning. Walked me to class. Entered competitions with me and let me take the credit. When it rained, he let himself get soaked just to keep me dry. On my birthday, he gave me a tiny music box, the exact one I'd mentioned once offhandedly. He said he worked 3 side jobs to buy it. I was completely swept away. That night, when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I said yes without hesitation. I thought it was the start of a fairy tale. It was the first chapter of a nightmare. We fell hard and fast. After graduation, I was determined to marry him. My mom begged me not to. She said he wasn't the man I thought he was. But I was young and stupid and convinced I was right. So I jumped headfirst into the fire. The moment we got married, he changed. He said, "You don't need to work. I'll take care of everything." And I believed him. What I didn't realize was that I was being groomed into his personal maid. Cooking, cleaning, taking care of his mother like a live-in servant. The first time I cried and asked him why, he said, "You're my wife. That's what wives do." I called my mom, sobbing. But she wasn't the kind of mother who said, "Just be patient." She was the kind who moved fast and cut deep. She tore off his mask with surgical precision. So like a fool I softened. I believed him when he begged for forgiveness. When he said, "I didn't mean to cheat. It just happened." Then he got me pregnant. On purpose. And nearly killed me. Lying in that hospital bed, fighting for my life while he argued about splitting the surgery bill? That's when I finally woke up. Later, when he was drowning in debt, he came crawling to me again. What he didn't know was, those debts. That pressure? It was my mom and Uncle Rick. High-interest loans timed perfectly. He begged for help. When I refused, his whole face twisted. That mask cracked completely. He leaned in and whispered, "I slept with half the girls in college. Marrying you? That was about money. And after we tied the knot, you became my housemaid for free. Why would I ever say no?" I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the scalding hot coffee in front of me and threw it straight into his smug face. He screamed and ran. I've never felt lighter in my life. And yes, it was me who lured him into the underground street racing scene. He wasn't a racer. And after that final race, he never moved again. Hunter ended up brain dead. Marlene lost everything and landed on the streets begging for spare change. No funeral. No one claimed his body. He died alone in a freezing winter. I always said, bad people get what's coming to them. But even now, there's a knot in my heart I can't untie. I hurt my mother. The one person who stood by me no matter how foolish, stubborn, or self-destructive I became. She could have retired early, traveled the world, lived for herself. But she didn't. She stayed. She fought. He cleaned up my mess. I swore I'd make it up to her. I dove into the business world, started from the bottom, and worked harder than anyone else. In under a month, I was promoted to department manager. 6 months later, my mom officially retired and handed me the company. I doubled the revenue in 1 year. And I launched a nonprofit arm to support abused women like I used to be. At our company celebration dinner, she teased me. "So, time to get married again?" I smiled and shook my head. "Mom, I used up all my trust. What I've got left, I'm saving for myself." She laughed and squeezed my shoulder. "Then love yourself with everything you've got." Right now, she's somewhere in the Alps, skiing under the clouds. Tomorrow she's off to Florence for a painting class. Me? I'm standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows of our headquarters, watching the city lights flicker like stars. I've become the kind of woman she is, strong, sharp, self-sufficient. Not looking for love. Looking to win. Haley Wood is my mother. She's my role model. And I am no one's victim. No man's possession. No sob story. I am Caroline Wood. And this time no one's dragging me back into the dark.